Did you know I can still feel the settling and the silence come through the sanctuary as I ring that mindfulness bell each Sunday? It's as though we're still here together. Welcome. Welcome to the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist in Newburyport, Massachusetts. My name is Reverend Rebecca Bryan, and I am the minister of this beloved congregation. We come together as a church community committed to love, peace, and justice. Our core values are authentic connection, courageous action, love, spirituality, and wonder. Our mission and our invitation to everyone is to come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, transform our world. If you're visiting today or joining us for the first time, we're especially glad that you are here today. As you join online, there are links you can click to see today's order of service. If you joined from YouTube, the links are just below the live stream. Please click on the words "See More," and if necessary, you'll see them. If you're watching from our website, there are buttons below the live stream, and I know that there are those of you on Zoom as well. So wonderful ways to be together. If you have a chalice with you at home now, it's a great time to light it as we enter into worship. And I also just want to say that this is indeed a very special worship service. It is one that Justin and I were talking before we started. Each and every element, each video, the spiritual practice that we have for our pastoral prayer, and maybe the sermon, has its own importance. So breathe it in. Take this time and invite yourself to be changed. Every Sunday we say it is no small thing that we have gathered. This morning it is a particularly big thing that we have gathered. So let us give ourselves to it. I welcome one and all to our church and our worship service. It is good to be together. And our call to worship this morning are the words of Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman from her inaugural poem, "The Hill We Climb." She writes, "We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. If we merge mercy with might, and might with right, then love becomes our legacy, and change our children's birthright. You are joyfully called to worship." Let's join together now our voices in saying our chalice lighting words as Justin lights the chalice. They are in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. This morning we light a candle of hope and remembrance in recognition of the COVID-19 pandemic. All those who are struggling for economic security, all those who are helping the fight for health, vaccinations, and all those who have lost their lives. We will continue to light this candle each time we worship for as long as we live into this worldwide reality. And then each week, we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. We know there are untold numbers of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we especially hold close in this service and through the week ahead. After the candles are lit, I invite you to speak the words for peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Peace, salam, shalom. We light our first candle this morning for the nation of Armenia, which continues to be embroiled in conflict with its neighbor, Azerbaijan. The nation of Turkey, which was responsible for the genocide of over 1 million Armenians during World War I, has provided significant military aid to Azerbaijan to maintain dominance over majority Armenian areas of the Karabakh region. We pray that peace can prevail through mutual understanding and international cooperation that honors the sovereignty, and dignity of all people. Peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle this morning is lit in honor of International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which will be taking place this Wednesday, January 27th, and in honor and memory of the 6 million Jews who were killed during the Holocaust. May we always remember, and may we learn and live into the reparations that are necessary for healing for generations past, present, and to come. Peace, salam, shalom. I'll invite us into a moment of silence at this time. Amen.
Please join now in singing our opening hymn, number 1048, Ubi Caritas. We'll sing this song several times, so please join in with this meditative piece as you feel comfortable.
Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est.
Please join now in saying our affirmation of faith, printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by
This morning, I am thrilled to share with you a video that has been put together by Julie Parker Amory and participants in the Seeing White programs that she has been offering. Since last spring, 50 people, including members of this congregation and the larger community, have participated in this important series, meeting twice each week to listen to podcasts and to share with each other their own experiences and learning about racism and the important work of anti-racism. I know you will appreciate the messages in this journey as they share their experiences and what they have learned.
In Seeing White, we set out to turn the lens, to look at racism not mainly through the experience of the people on the receiving end, as we journalists usually do, but by examining those of us whose ancestors built this contraption, this white supremacist dream. Those of us conditioned not to see whiteness, even as we accept its advantages as our birthright.
The material is very well organized. It covers 400 years of history and is very revealing about how the concept of whiteness came about.
Racism is actually an integral part of the founding of this country and the way this country continues to govern itself.
It's fair to say literally that slave traders commissioned the invention of this sort of codified racist idea of black people and implicitly then, on the other hand, of white people. Yes.
Participating in Seeing White was challenging, humbling, and empowering. I learned the political, cultural, and economic derivation and classification of races and faced my own white privilege. Being anti-racist is an action-driven, lifelong process.
We learn to trust each other and really listen to other people's input on the podcasts that we listen to individually.
I'm Puerto Rican and a cautious person by nature, so at times I found it really difficult to be the only person of color in our group and to open up and share my thoughts and personal experiences about racism. However, by the end of the series, and once I realized that the people in our group consisted of people that were truly committed to learning and challenging racism, I felt safe in that space.
Every week you had to be there, and we made a commitment and we did it, and we learned so much. But it was just that I made the commitment to do it, and I did it.
Jefferson basically says, look, we want Indian land, but they're not just going to give it to us. So we have to motivate them to sign treaties, and the way that we do that is going to be to get them into debt.
Going through the podcast and the discussions, I learned how it was really something that whiteness was constructed for the purpose of maintaining power and giving privilege and really supremacy to white people in laws and in all the institutions and systems in our country.
One person's statement would trigger another person to be thinking a little bit differently. And I think that we really contributed maybe to each other's learning as a result of doing this together.
Everybody knows a dark brown Hindu is not a white person. So we're going to jettison science, and we're going to say the only people who are white in terms of being able to join the country are the sorts of people that we as a country believe are white.
I kept being surprised by history that I had not learned in my formal education, and came face to face with the fact that systemic racism is exactly why I had this ignorance.
Thought I knew. I thought I understood. After seeing white, I know now that I cannot understand.
The challenge always is, okay, and what's next? And how do I get to next? But I think it's this process of absorbing and processing, and like Helen said, you are more ready for the opportunity when it comes. And even we may not know what that is, but we're preparing ourselves.
The podcast was just so well done in terms of using incidents or court cases or cultural exhibits, or just such a wide variety of subjects that we could kind of go into an in-depth discussion of.
As one of the newer members of FRS, I think that it gave me an opportunity also to meet people who have similar beliefs and thoughts as I do.
It's a wonderful thing to listen to the podcasts and then share feelings with a number of other folks about your and their reactions to the material. And it's eye-opening.
In a way, the effort to get people to come together under the banner of whiteness has sort of always been about power and exploitation. So I don't know what that means about trying to salvage the idea of like good whiteness. That's something that you got to wrestle with.
This is the time in our service when the offering will be gratefully received. Before I do that, I just want to wish, on behalf of the FRS community, Reverend Rebecca a very happy birthday. The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church to live out our values, mission, and ends, both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. The January shared collection will support Community Service of Newburyport Incorporated, which operates a food pantry and provides clothing, emergency relief, and referral services for people in need in Newburyport, Newbury, and West Newbury. They also run the annual holiday gift bag program for children and seniors, and in the summer provide 2 weeks of summer camp for local children. In the chat, there is a link you can use to make your contribution online. You can also text a contribution by sending the word GIVE FRSUU to the number 73256. And of course, you can always mail a check to the church as well. Contributions from the weekly offering are down significantly this year due to our online worship format, so your generosity is especially appreciated at this time. The offering will now be gratefully given and received.
This is a time in our service each week when we lift up the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. I invite you to share your joys and sorrows in the chat as I read those that have been sent in advance. We're going to be giving a little bit extra time before concluding to ensure that everyone who wants to have the opportunity to participate in the chat does so. This morning, we light a candle. John Dodge has sent and asked that we light a candle and keep in our hearts Kathy Mulligan, daughter of long-term FRS member Pat and Kay Mulligan, on the death of her husband, Tony Flaherty. And Tom Himmel asks for prayers and comforting thoughts for his daughter-in-law, Liz Himmel, and for the family of Liz's close friend of many years, Annie. Annie, who had passed away from cancer this week. Annie leaves behind a grieving husband and 2 very young children.
We share in the joy of Judy Fair for the 3 special people in her life who happen to have their birthdays today: Reverend Rebecca, Jocelyn, and Glenn. And we share in the joy of Gail Fair celebrating the birthday of her wife, Judy. We pray with Kathy D. to send light and prayers for her brother-in-law, Ed Floria, who is engaged in a long battle against cancer and who will learn of his progress through a scan tomorrow.
And we light one final candle for all those joys and sorrows that, though unspoken, are just as important. And for those who know that I love candles, I'm going to light a few extra this morning. For the light we see returning these days. This morning I'll be inviting you to participate in another spiritual practice as our pastoral prayer. We've been devoting this month of January to the concept and the experience of forgiveness from different practices, different perspectives, and different ways of holding this and deepening our understanding and relationship to this important concept. Today, we'll be exploring the concept of how we integrate and hold social justice and the work for change and the truth and reality of difficulties, pain, mistakes, tragic mistakes that have been made in society, how we hold that and work for the change and hold forgiveness as an important value and experience in our lives. This practice that I invite you to participate in now is a Buddhist meditation practice called Tonglen. I learned about this years ago in my own journey, my own faith journey, and I began using it with amazing results. Since then and over the years, I've shared it many times with people, both in one-on-one pastoral care conversations and in shared collective times. And I invite you into this now. We'll probably spend about 4 minutes in this practice. This practice of Tonglen, and I invite you to begin to get settled as I just explain it a little bit, putting your feet upon the ground, taking the things off your lap, breathing into your body. This practice of Tonglen is something that I turn to when I feel full up. And that's the important word, when I feel full. When I feel as though I'm not sure how much more I can handle or feel. When our own pain, sometimes our own self-absorption, sometimes our own compassion and empathy and connection to the pains of the world are beyond words, that is when I use this practice. And I find that by sitting and shifting even just for a few minutes, something moves. Zen Buddhist teacher Joan Halifax says this about Tonglen. She says, it develops our ability to be present for suffering and offers us a way to cultivate natural mercy. It asks us to invite suffering into our being and let it break open the armor of our hearts. So begin by breathing in. Breathe in whatever you are feeling right now. Frustration, overwhelm, fear, joy, gratitude. Just breathe this in and accept it. And as you exhale, breathe out well-being. And now I invite you to bring to your heart and your mind some uncomfortable feeling for you. It may be something that is agitating you currently, long held. It may be anger, pain, overwhelm. Breathe it in. Breathe into this pain, which for so many of us is the opposite of what we're inclined to do. Rather than resisting it, breathe into it and accept it with kindness. And then as you exhale, give yourself some spaciousness around this feeling. As you inhale, imagine you're inhaling heavy, hot air. And as you exhale, visualize exhaling cool, light air. Breathing in heaviness, breathing out lightness. Taking in the pain, breathing out relief. The heaviness is suffering, and the lightness is well-being. And as you're doing this now, visualize a mental shield or sheath around your heart. You don't have to imagine too hard. It is the band of fear that hardens our hearts. This practice is inviting us to dissolve this metal sheath and open our heart to non-judgmentalness, warmth, kindness. That is natural mercy, the quality of an unarmored heart that allows us to be with suffering and at the same time see beneath it. Bring to your heart now and your mind some being, a person, the earth, an animal. Bring to your mind some sentient being, dead or alive, someone or something with whom you feel a deep connection, someone you know is suffering, a parent, child, grandmother, friend, teacher. You would do anything to help this person. Be with this one now and feel what they are experiencing in your heart. Let your whole being turn toward their suffering and your wish that it might be relieved. As you feel their suffering, breathe it into you as warm air. And then, as you exhale, exhale cool, loving, healing air. Breathing in their suffering and breathing out all that you wish for them. Freedom, relief, love. Now breathe in your own pain. Breathe in the heat and challenges of your losses, your tiredness, your grief. And breathe out spaciousness, openness, and kindness. Breathe in the pain and breathe out relief. And as you continue to do this, consider that at this very moment, there are countless others who are experiencing the same feelings you are. You are not alone. They are not alone. We are not alone. Breathe into this collective pain of our congregation, of this city, towns around, and state, country, world. Breathe into the pain of the collective body. And breathe out love, compassion, gentleness, and warmth. Breathing in to the pain. Breathing out to the space and the love and the connection. I invite you to continue breathing for just another moment or two. Breathing in and breathing out. Amen. I pray you found some release. It is the opposite of what we're so wired to do, which is flee, run, resist, deny. When we flee, run, resist, and deny our own pain, it remains buried, hidden, and controlling. And the same is true of the pain of the world. This sermon this morning is divided into two parts, the first longer than the second. And it is my reflection and thoughts about the question of how we hold a place for both forgiveness and commitment to justice. I'll start with a short personal story. Whose pain is it? Whose pain is it? I was lying in Shavasana, or corpse pose, at the end of a yoga class years ago, when the veil between my conscious mind and unconscious mind lifted, and I was gifted with an epiphany that liberated me. I'd been struggling for months with guilt and anxiety and confusion and even depression about the choice I was making around my career and being a mother. I knew I was very blessed to even have a choice, and they were still difficult choices. And I actually couldn't understand why it was so difficult. So at this tender age of 27, I thought I was so old then. I now know the tenderness of that time. I was choosing to be true to myself, and I was choosing a both-and approach to motherhood and to career. I was choosing to work part-time and also still have significant time at home with my newborn daughter. It sounded great. I was grateful that I had those choices. I expected it to feel great. And yet it felt anything but. I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders, and I struggled to overcome these feelings of guilt. I couldn't understand them. This voice in my head kept saying, "What is wrong with you that you want to work and not be home with your new baby all the time?" And then, in that yoga class I mentioned, I was set free. That thought came to me almost like a voice that said, "Whose pain is it?" And I knew instantaneously it was my mother's pain that I was carrying and feeling, not mine. My mother, as a divorced woman many years before that, I am sure, I know, felt guilty about having to work part-time, even though she didn't have a choice. Knowing the pain that she lived in for all of her life, it was clear to me she never forgave herself for that and many, many, many other things. Her guilt and her unresolved pain, not just about that small story I said, but all of it. All that unresolved pain was passed on to me as legitimately as my DNA or my genes. The deep connection between personal liberation and social transformation is increasingly clear, write the authors of Radical Dharma, Talking Race, Love, and Liberation. It is difficult, if not impossible, to work for justice for other people in life-affirming, creative, and collaborative ways, guided by love, if we continue to live imprisoned in our own resentments, trauma, or any other states of unforgiveness. We can do the work of social justice without engaging in that level of deep personal healing. And I've seen and been with many people who've done that. However, in my experience, when we do it that way, our commitment and work to social justice comes from places of anger, if not rage, obligation, ego, individualism. Living with unresolved personal pain and burdens results, we know this, it is documented that it results in things like anxiety, depression, and unhealthy anger. Also, a decreased ability to trust other people, to connect, and to stay embodied. So again, when we approach our work to societal change from those places, we are not bringing our whole integrated, healed selves into that work. And we run the risk of causing further harm or burning out. The authors of Radical Dharma recognize this. When they write about and talk about their thoughts on the success of the current movement for the liberation of Black lives, and how, I quote, it must be articulated by and inextricably linked to an embodied personal liberation. We saw this same need in response to the Holocaust, poignantly displayed as one example by Holocaust survivor and forgiveness advocate Eva Kor. May she rest in peace. On the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz in 1995, Eva Kor stood in the presence of Dr. Munch, who had operated the gas chambers, and after he read his statement of truth about these crimes, horrific crimes, she forgave him. And she said, and I quote, "As I did that, I felt a burden of pain was lifted from me. I was no longer in the grip of hate. I was finally free." This forgiveness that she talked about and personal liberation, first of all, we don't get to do spiritual bypasses. It's not quick. It's not easy. It's not once and done. It also is not done without a deep engagement and commitment to social justice. It didn't happen in a vacuum for her. You can read those words. We can read those words that she says to this man, "I forgive you," right, for all the crimes you committed and all the pain. At the same time and leading up to that, she worked tirelessly for justice and reparation for harms done to herself and others, including suing Bayer Pharmaceutical Company for their participation in these human experiments at the camps. That resulted in an establishment of a $5 billion foundation for remembrance, responsibility, and future. We forgive people, flawed people with their own pasts, not acts. We forgive people, not actions. The need for both personal and societal transformation, again, written about by Jasmine Sudla. She says this in Radical Dharma. She says, we have to balance that work of societal change with the work of overthrowing the oppressive system operating internally that keeps us enslaved. Then we can engage in the work of social justice from a place of principled love, able to hold the complexities of demanding societal transformation, reparations, and living with joy, despite it all. It's not a linear process. We don't attend to our own healing and then engage with the world. It happens simultaneously, each feeding the other. As I am freed, I am deeply committed to the freedom of others. As they are freed, I'm inspired and committed to the work. If we're to stop transmitting our own pain and our own ancestors' pains, we must engage in personal healing as we engage with the world. And yet, if we remain siloed or stuck only in our own personal healing, we live unliberated in other ways. Life is about more than our own pain, and yes, even more than our own healing. As we heal and are liberated from our pain, we cannot help but want that same liberation for all people. It's that frame of reference which we use as our own personal agency to help make God or love visible in the form of justice and collective liberation. I invite us all now to sit with these thoughts as we listen and allow the next words and music to enter our hearts.
I am so grateful that my dear friend and colleague Lynn Mendoza-Khan worked so hard with me to present the music we're about to share with you. And she wrote these words that I want to share with you now. I think they are an essential part of what we have made together. And so, with her permission, I share this truth that she shared with me. She says, "When I started brainstorming for this video, I thought I would include pictures of poor people happily engaged in acts of generosity, reflecting the subject matter of the song. I wanted to highlight my experience of working my way out of poverty that felt aligned with the message of this song. Growing up in a poor Latin, mostly Mexican community in the wealthy Napa Valley and then in Modesto, California, I remember how important and enjoyable it was to have an extended church family that really looked out for each other. Knowledge was generously shared, and there was a sincere connection with each other, so that not only did we pitch in and help each other in need, but truly celebrated each other's wins as our own. I really wanted to tell that story. Sadly, as I looked for images to begin that storyboard, I was deeply triggered by the overwhelming images of white people helping poor people of color. That got me thinking, I wonder how many pictures I can find of white people helping poor white people. As we all know, there are plenty of poor white people in this country. I was angered by the deficit of all of these images, and this anger invited me to tell a very different story. Too many people are ingesting unhealthy doses of narratives that blame each other for the problems and struggles that we see and experience for ourselves. Just because this is true, it doesn't negate our responsibility to think critically about these messages and to address our own fears around poverty. This is how the idea of filming a wilderness came to me. We are all walking through a wilderness of opinions and perspectives, some coming from less credible places, and instead of using our moral compass to question how we will act and react, we run with false narratives that continue a cycle of misunderstanding. It's lazy and it's reckless. My prayer is that people attend church for the community and to ingest all of the perspectives and messages of compassion and love, so that this will be the ultimate manifestation of God in their lives as they think about what to say and what to do in forming their reaction to injustice. I hope that you enjoy this music.
Cuando el pobre nada tiene y aún reparte, cuando alguien pasa sed y agua nos da, cuando el débil a su hermano fortalece, va Dios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar, va Dios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar. When the poor ones who have nothing still are giving, when the thirsty pass the cup, water to share, when the wounded offer others strength and healing, we see God here by our side, walking our way. We see God hatred all around us. We see God here by her side, walking our way. We see God here by her side, walking our way. Cuando abunda el bien y llena los hogares, cuando alguien donde hay guerra pone paz, cuando hermano les llamamos al extraño, va Dios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar. Va Dios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar.
What is the role of the church, and specifically our church, in issues of personal and societal liberation? I look to Martin Luther King Jr. for the answer. In his last book, published in 1967 before his assassination, King wrote, and I quote, "Among the forces of white liberalism, the church has a special obligation. It is the voice of moral and spiritual authority on earth. It has too often blessed a status quo that needs to be blasted and reassured a social order that needed to be reformed. This is the pressing challenge," he wrote, "confronting the white liberal. When evil men plot, good men plan. When evil men burn and bomb, good men must build and bind. When evil men conspire to preserve an unjust status quo, good men must unite to bring about the birth of a society undergirded by justice. Nothing can be more detrimental to the health of America at this time than for liberals to sink into a state of apathy and indifference." Dr. King is clear in his call to white liberal churches and its members. We must tell the truth of our complicity, our failings, and our weaknesses, not to brand ourselves sinners, but to set ourselves and those who we have failed free. In this case, black people. But it applies everywhere, and it applies everywhere. We witnessed the beginning of this here last Sunday when Frank Cousins told his father's story. And then we heard more stories during coffee hour after service about not only the Cousins and their families' experiences, but of other black people and their experiences. And there's been talk on our FRS-UU Members and Friends Facebook page of our engaging with the work of Ibram Kendi says, He says, truth-telling is essential for healing and reparations. The heartbeat of racism is denial. And the heartbeat of anti-racism is confession. Truth-telling isn't the end of the work, but it is an essential beginning. Reverend Carlene told us 18 months ago that this was the place for us to start. She said, learn your own stories and let them be known. We can do this work with conviction and love, channeling our anger to fuel our commitment to and energy for this work. Personal and societal restorative work, it alchemizes our anger and our fear and transforms it into creativity, imagination, healing, love, connection. And it allows so that we do not pass on and transmit the pain of this generation and past generations unto our children and our grandchildren. The church's role is to support and nurture both personal healing and engage in the work of social justice. And we've committed to both of those things in our values, our mission, and our ends. 3 of our ends say, 1, to care for one another throughout life, to steward history, if we are to care for history in its truth, and to partner with others working for justice. This is real work, all of it. And it is hard. It is messy, imperfect, and challenging. It is also freeing, liberating, and joy-making. It will not be completed this year or next year. It will not be completed in our lifetime. It is the work of lifetimes. And yet, is there anything more important? Amen, and blessed be. Let's join together our voices in singing hymn number 1017, Building a New Way.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. Peace and free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom
Let's join together now in our unison benediction as Justin extinguishes the chalice. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. My friends, as we go from here this morning, may we remember that we will be given exactly what we need, that we will be given all of the strength, the compassion, the love, the connection, the answers, that justice will prevail if we seek the truth, if we tell the truth, if we hold each other accountable and in love, if we invite the spirit of the universe, the love, the thing that makes this place church. If we invite that into ourselves, into our lives, into our relationships and our work for justice and freedom, we will experience things that we cannot imagine alone, separate, or closed down. I love you all. Have a wonderful week. Go in peace, my friends. Return again in great joy. Amen and blessed be.